Welcome all to BFantasyFootball Podcast. I'm your host, Derek, and this is my brother and my co-host, Marcel, the Raiders fan. Today we are going over our top pickups at each position for week 6 and what we've seen in week 5. So looking at the injury news first, in case you missed it, the injuries are running back Dalvin Cook. He had a abductor strain injury, so there's a chance he might miss week 6. They have a bye on week 7. Quarterback Dak Prescott, he's out for the rest of the season. If you've seen that injury, oh my God, don't look at that video if you have a chance. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson, he does have a back injury. I'm not sure if he will start in week 6. Quarterback Kyle Allen did get banged up this week, but it is believed he's going to be starting in week 6. Wide receiver Keenan Allen left the game with back spasms, so we're not sure on his return. There is a bye this week for them, so at least that helps. Wide receiver Sammy Watkins, he has a hamstring. He's likely going to at least miss a couple weeks, if not more. And wide receiver Chris Hogan, diagnosed with a high ankle sprain for the Jets. You have any comments on any of those, Mars?
Yeah, so for Dalvin Cook, this week, I'm going to put him as doubtful for the simple reason that they have a bye week the week after this week in week 7. So that way, for a soft tissue injury like this, if they really let him get it right, then the 2 weeks that they could have as a cushion for the healing process, then he'd be very healthy coming into week 8. There'd be no worries. It's a similar injury to what Montgomery had, but not as bad, not as severe. And Montgomery bounced back in 3 weeks, so less severe. Give him 2 weeks. He'll be good to go, and that's how I see it. Right now, it's still up in the air. Deontay Johnson, I fully expect him to play this week, but do monitor it. Kyle Allen, yeah, he hurt his non-throwing shoulder, and it was more just a stinger, a bruise, whatever you want to call it. He'll be fine. He's set and said he would start this week. Chris Hogan, I want to talk about his teammate in Perriman. This is a guy that's coming back from injury and is expected to practice tomorrow and hopefully play this weekend. So that I might mention on deep waiver pickups. And another person coming back from injury, or 2 other people coming back from injury, are Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. These are 2 players that might play this week as well. So those are players to monitor that are coming back from injury. And that's all for injury news. Getting into other news, there's no games this Thursday. So with the Tuesday night game that we just had, a lot of teams are going through waivers tonight, Wednesday night. That's why we're deciding to release and do this show today on Wednesday instead of doing it yesterday as we typically do. And there's no game tomorrow, so even if somebody drops someone and you want to pick them up, you'll have them by Friday morning in typical waiver settings. Head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, Dan Quinn, has been fired. He's out the door. How do you think this affects Atlanta, Derek? Do you have any word on this? Personally, I feel like the way their system is built, it's an aged system through Matt Ryan's been there for years. Julio Jones been there for years. It's throw slightly more than you run and throw to Julio when you can, and then Calvin Ridley when you can't throw to Julio. Julio being hurt, I don't know how this changes things if it does, but do you have any opinion on that?
I think, yeah, like you said, it's just such an ingrained system that they're just going to probably keep it as going until they have, until they know a coach of the future. I know they, of course, hired one right away. I think they just promoted someone or something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's more of a short-term thing. If they all of a sudden do sign on someone for next year, maybe they'll get him in here this year. But likely not. They're just going to probably, they're already 0-5. They might just keep playing, playing how they're playing and just trying to get through the season. And they probably don't mind the high draft pick at this point if they're just going to have this bad of a team and they want a new coach just to start it off fresh, right? Have a good pick and everything like that. So I can see it just not changing at all, really.
Yeah. The Jets have released running back Le'Veon Bell. He's finally released from Adam Gase, which is huge for him. But now the question is, where does he go? I did write down a quick shorthand list of potential options I thought in my head. So Tampa, we've seen them go out and get Leonard Fournette, go out and get Shady McCoy. They're looking for a back to fill the role of what they want. Right now they're using Ronald Jones. Yeah, I've been a Ronald Jones believer, truther, and all this, but this isn't the system for Ronald Jones where it's a pass-heavy offense. He should be on a run-heavy offense because that's what he does well. He's a great runner, but pass catcher, pass blocker, he struggles there. So Ronald Jones doesn't fit this offense. Now, Le'Veon Bell, great pass blocker. Le'Veon Bell, great pass catcher. So he fits this offense. Do they have the cap space? Depends if he's all right in taking a hit. I mean, Jets owe him money because they released him, so he's pretty much getting paid for this year. So he's going to get the money. But what does he want in the next contract? Does he want the chance to play? Does he want the opportunity, or is he chasing the money? Or it depends what he's chasing. So yeah, like I said, I have Tampa. Then I put Bears because they just lost Tariq Cohen. They have a little bit of money to play with. People doubt Montgomery. As I've been saying on Twitter, I've been saying on the show, Montgomery is a buy low option till week 5, and then he's going to explode. Schedule opens up now for Montgomery, so if they don't sign Le'Veon Bell this week, it means the team of the Chicago Bears are bought into Montgomery, and going forward, Montgomery is safe, and they're not going to sign anyone to take his place. I also put Dolphins just because Jordan Howard has been horrible. He was a healthy scratch this weekend. Breida has been extremely inefficient, and then Myles Gaskin is good for fantasy purposes. He has 25 plus opportunities per game almost every game this year, so that's why he's good for fantasy. But is he super efficient? He's not super highly efficient, and maybe Le'Veon Bell could be better. And where they're kind of beating tough teams, I mean, can they compete with good teams? We'll see. And the last one to put on the list is the Raiders, just because they love pass catching backs. They love giving Josh Jacobs a rest. And John Gruden loves Le'Veon Bell. John Gruden had Josh Jacobs watching Le'Veon Bell clips on how to pass protect. So that's just 4 teams off the top of my head. Derek, do you have any ideas there?
Yeah, I was thinking if Dan Quinn wasn't fired, why not the Atlanta Falcons? Because they only have Gurley, and then they're using Hill too. But I mean, who knows? Maybe even that, the one that was promoted, that coach might decide to go get Bell just to try to see what they can do with him for the year and see if he's worth signing on into the future. That way, if they have him for next year and they, have a first-round draft pick, like a high first pick, they can maybe get that one more piece and try to make a run for it, right, with that new coach. But other than that, I'm not sure what other teams there would be. I could see maybe the Browns doing it if they are worried about Kareem Hunt's injury, but I don't know their cap space at the moment. So it's just we don't know about Nick Chubb. Like, he's only going to be back at least, in 6 weeks or something like that, they said? 4 to 6 weeks at the minimum. So, yeah, they come for later, but if they need someone now, it's hard to say. It depends what Le'Veon Bell's going for. I don't even know what kind of costs he might demand. I mean, he held out a whole season for it, so I'm hoping he gets a good signature somewhere. I mean, the poor guy, he wasted a whole good year of his life trying to hold out for all running backs. So, the next part of the news, we have running back Melvin Gordon of the Broncos got charged with a DUI on Tuesday. So Fangio is undecided if he's going to let him play this week against New England. We'll see. I mean, that's a good idea, a good reason to look at Philip Lindsay, and if you're really desperate, Royce Freeman, if Melvin Gordon were to sit. And just to let you guys know, the bye weeks, this is one of the first ones with 4 teams. We got the Raiders, Chargers, Saints, and Seahawks. So those are the byes this week. And now we're going to move on to the waiver wire. First, I'm going to go with the quarterbacks. I'm going to look at Gardner Minshew versus Detroit. I mean, he's a long-term plan as well. He's not just a streamer of 1 week. He's 56% owned, so half of the leagues, almost most, don't have him available. But if he's there, just grab him, put him in your lineup. I mean, he's been proving pretty good, and now he's against Detroit, and he'll probably have good matchups after that as well. Next, I got Kirk Cousins. If you just want for a week or so, because he is against Atlanta, and they haven't showed anything for being a good defense. After that, I do got Andy Dalton. He could maybe be a long-term starter. He's against Arizona this week. We have to really see how good he is with that team. I mean, he doesn't have the greatest O-line, although I think he got used to that in Cincinnati beforehand anyways. But it'd be interesting to see how good and what kind of chemistry he has with these wide receivers, and if he can perform even 90% of Dak Prescott. And then also I've got Teddy Bridgewater as another possible long-term one. He's against Chicago this week, so he's not so much someone you'd want to play. And if you need another short-term just for this week, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, there's no question he's against the Jets, and he just torches any team he wants. The only problem is sometimes when you think you can rely on him the most, that's when he fails you. What about you, Mars?
Yeah, so if you're going through the bye week woes where maybe you had Drew Brees as your quarterback or Derek Carr, I mean, chances are you didn't. Or you had Russ or you had Justin Herbert. This is the week to play Ryan Fitzpatrick, as you just said, and that's why Ryan Fitzpatrick is at the top of my list for short term. If you're looking for long term, Ryan Tannehill surprisingly still owned in less than 70% of leagues. So as we like to mention every week when we do this episode, we only look at waiver wire options that are owned in less than 70% of ESPN leagues. That's our base. That's the website we use, just because they're easily accessible to those numbers. So yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been nothing but short of amazing, and I don't want to take credit for this, so I'm going to give credit to the fantasy footballers. Listening to a podcast on a walk today, they did mention interesting stat on Ryan Tannehill is if you compare Ryan Tannehill to Patrick Mahomes in both their last 14 full games played, they're pretty much identical. Other than Patrick Mahomes has like 70 yards more so 70 yards on 14 games is 5 yards a game. I mean, the difference is minimal, and people aren't believing in him yet. I don't know why. He just put up 30 fantasy points against the Bills, and I believe he was QB1 on the week, if not QB2. He was up there. So, and he always brings the Russian baseline. So that's why if you're looking for somebody rest of the year, or you lost Dak, or something like this happens, I really like Ryan Tannehill. But as I said, this week, if you need a quarterback for only this week, Ryan Fitzpatrick's your guy. At number 3, I have Gardner. As Derek mentioned, I don't have to give anything else. He's been nothing short but great. Had one shaky game. Has Detroit, easy matchup. Matthew Stafford on the other side of the ball in that game. You can also play him. Coming off a bye, finally. They had a full week of practice, no games coming up, so they're able to really get Galladay going, really like tweak up some things. And yeah, and then at number 5, I have Jared Goff / Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins would be a this week play. Jared Goff is, again, rest of the year kind of play if you're looking for a quarterback long term. Moving into wide receivers, so I'm going to list off my top. I'm going to list them all off and give quick reasons, and then Derek can go ahead. So number 1, I have Chase Claypool. This is if I have him as number 1 for highest ceiling. Deontay Johnson keeps getting hurt, but this isn't why the ceiling's there. It's because he started this week across from Deontay Johnson. Their first snap, it was Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju in the slot, and I expect them to go with that forward. So they demoted James Washington to the 4th wide receiver there. But obviously Claypool's ceiling was higher because Deontay was out for over half the game. Second, I have Brandon Cooks. Now, people were low on him. I was still iffy on him. I was like, is this part of the coaching, or is this... Because I thought the talent was still there. The targets weren't there. That was my biggest thing. So I have Brandon Cooks number 2 as I think he can be a safe player, but I want to see it first. But I like the ad. Number 3, I have Mecole Hardman. This is because Sammy Watkins is out for multiple weeks. And I think this is Mecole Hardman's time to break out as the wide receiver 2 here and to stay as the wide receiver 2 here in Kansas City. He's explosive, downfield ability, which if you have 2 players downfield ability, they have Travis Kelce over the middle and they have CEH out of the backfield, they got to let someone loose. The defense can't guard all 4, and what's going to happen, Mecole Hardman is going to have good weeks. Number 4, I have T. Higgins. Again, he proved he can be a very good option against a very good team. He actually was better than Tyler Boyd this week, so that's good on him. At 5, I have Mike Williams, just because we've seen Justin Herbert able to throw the deep ball, and Mike Williams excels at receiving the deep ball. Why not go Mike Williams? Yes, they're on a bye week, and that's why I have him on this list a little lower, is because people are not going to see him when they go to add him, because it prioritizes the projections to this week, and he's not going to be on those projections. This goes with my 7th pick in Henry Ruggs. Same thing. He's going to be hidden there. So you can go pick those guys up. Henry Ruggs looked great in his 2 targets, 2 receptions. They were big plays, and that's what we're going to get out of him. but they really, really like to use him in that post route, and it's showing. It's successful. And then at 6, between Mike Williams and Henry Ruggs, I have Laviska Shenault, just because he's proven to have a high floor in and out every week. Gets a couple rushing attempts, gets 5 to 6 receptions, and can put up plus 50 yards. Once the touchdowns start coming, with DJ Chark having a rolled ankle, once a touchdown starts coming, Laviska Shenault's going to be a very good player. He kind of reminds me of that Cole Beasley with rushing upside. I guess I should go with Deebo Samuel. Whatever you had in Deebo Samuel last year, I put in 80% of those points to Laviska Shenault. That's how I see him. Tim Patrick, kind of a deeper add. Travis Fulgham had a great week. He would be way up in my receiver rankings if I knew for sure Deshaun Jackson and Alshon are not returning. But we also got to think of this. This is the biggest reason I have him lower, is the depth of that team. I know we say depth as in thinking they're deep, but when everyone's healthy, they are deep. Right now, they don't have Goddard. They don't have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. They don't have Jalen Reagor. Once all those guys come back, Travis Fulgham's going back to the practice team because Greg Ward's going to still be on the team over him. So that's why I have him. If you're a 1-4 team, 0-5 team, you have Michael Thomas who's on bye this week, you need to play some kind of wide receiver. Travis Fulgham is your guy, and he becomes your 1 or 2 priority. So it depends what you need here. And to finish off the list, deep PPR, Cole Beasley, he's consistent.
Yeah, looking for me for wide receivers, I got T. Higgins as my first, only because I think he has probably the better floor over Claypool. He's definitely not going to have the ceiling that Claypool has. As we saw, he had 4 touchdowns and really would have been 5 wasn't for a terrible call. So, I mean, that would have been better than almost any wide receiver's game, one game sample. But Claypool has been doing better, especially without Deontay in the lineup. But like Marcel said, he is starting opposite of Deontay Johnson. So he's someone to definitely own. But it's all depending on Deontay Johnson. And we got to see, like, how many touches does he see with Deontay in there the entire game, right? So, like, he has proven to be really good the last 2 games when Deontay's gone for most of the game. But if he is in there, it's something we have to see, right? So that's why I have T. Higgins a little bit higher, just I think he is the clear number 2, and on a pass-happy offense, kind of like the Steelers as well. So something to keep in mind. That's why I have Higgins over him. McCole Hardman's my 3rd, and that's the same reason as Sammy Watkins is out for at least a couple weeks, if not a few. And he just has such immense upside as well. And so if you're a team that really just needs production now, he is definitely probably shoots up that list. Brandon Cooks, I mean, he's someone that I feel like him and Will Fuller are just going to trade off who gets the points every week. It'd be nice if they could kind of share a little bit more, but they don't seem to. Mike Williams, I had him really close to Brandon Cooks. The only reason I didn't have him over is because of the bye week. If it wasn't for the bye week, I'd probably have him as one of my top wide receivers, just because we are seeing what we wanted from Herbert of trusting his wide receiver and letting Mike Williams go get it. The only thing with Mike Williams is he is not injury prone, but he tends to put everything else on the line, and he gets a lot of back injuries. Now, he seems to start a lot of games and seems to tough it out, but it does something that does make me scared. My fifth is Laviska Shenault. He's starting to take more and more touches away from Cole, and it wouldn't be long before we might even see him as the wide receiver 2 in this lineup, or at least production-wise. And then next I have Henry Ruggs. He's very Deshaun Jackson-like from years past, where he can score you a ton of points with a few touches, but it's kind of like Will Fuller from before. It's like, do we always get that to happen? If in really deep leagues, you could also do Travis Fulgham. The only thing that scares me is if Alshon and Deshaun Jackson come back, how much it's going to hurt him. So he's not a long-term ad, in my opinion. He's only short-term if you need those points. But it is a tough matchup coming up, but he's still worth an ad if you need the points. Tim Patrick, I mean, he's the second best wide receiver on their team. And what's his name is starting to throw the ball again, Drew Lock. So that's something to keep in mind. And Zach Pascal, if you need a few points, he'll get them for you most times. So looking now, we're going to look into our running backs. I got Alexander Madison as my top one. If you need a starter for this week and this week only, but he is someone to keep on your team. If you do have him, don't let him go after this week, because you never know if Dalvin Cook's going to injure himself again. And someone should have already had him to begin with, as well as all the other high-end handcuffs we have discussed before. Justin Jackson, he looked pretty good this week. He's someone to probably keep on your team. I have him as my second pickup. Philip Lindsay's only 51% owned, which surprised me. With Melvin Gordon maybe missing this week, he's definitely someone you're going to want for the short term, and it could be even a little more long term, not provide you maybe a high upside, but a consistent floor. Fourth, I got Cam Akers. That's just to see what he could become in that running back committee. It's kind of scary because it just seems everyone has equal share. Can he bust out? We'll have to wait and see. Chase Edmonds, he's another one of those high-end handcuffs. He should just be owned because, I mean, you see he's starting to do just as good as Devontae Parker. Yeah, sorry. What's his name? Kenyon Drake. So that is someone to monitor and definitely have on a team somewhere. Damian Harris, he didn't play last week, but the week before he got 100 yards on his first game back, so he's someone that should be owned. Because basically any running back that gets touches, you're going to want him on your team. And who knows, maybe he will prove out to be the number one running back in New England, but that's hard to call because it's New England. We typically like to shuffle him around a lot. Another two mentions are J.D. McKissick and LaMichael Pirine. McKissick just because he's starting to see quite a few snaps in Washington, and Pirine just because no more Bell, so he's hey, maybe he could take the role. What do you see, Mars, for the running backs?
Yeah, I have Justin Jackson as my number one. I think he slid into that Austin Eckler role, and they're keeping Joshua Kelly as a Joshua Kelly role. He had 21 touches, which there's not many running backs around the league that are getting 21 touches, and that's against a pretty good Saints defense. He almost had 100 yards from scrimmage too, which is great. Number two, I have Cam Akers. He turned 9 carries into 61 yards, which is 6.8 yards per carry, on 19% of snaps. Before the injury, at 35% of snaps. So there's a likelihood the snap percentage will go up, touches will go up. He only has 1 reception on the year because he's been injured every game but one. We should see the snap percentage go up, and he's more of a long-term, late-season guy. Then number 3, I have Alexander Madison. There's many options of things you can do with Alexander Madison. Number 1, grab him, play him this week. If I'm a 1-4 team and need to manufacture a win this week, I'm playing Alexander Madison. But if I'm a 4-1 team with a lot of fab or a good waiver priority, I'm grabbing Alexander Madison. I'm dangling him on a line, telling the Dalvin Cook owner, look, you messed up when you didn't get him in the draft. You messed up when you didn't get him on waivers in the first 5 weeks. Here he is. Give him to me for, I don't know, get a Brandon Cooks or Chase Claypool or T. Higgins from them, a wide receiver, or ask them for their Justin Jackson, ask them for their Cam Akers. Like, those are the guys you should be able to get in return from the Dalvin Cook owner for Alexander Madison. Or option 3 is the best of both worlds. Play Alexander Madison and then offer the trade to the Dalvin Cook owner saying, hey, you need the insurance. Dalvin Cook's known to be injury prone. He again got injured. Don't mess up, or I'm just going to keep him on my bench, and when playoffs come around and Dalvin Cook gets injured just like last year, I'm going to have Alexander Madison, not you, and I'm going to do great. So dangle him in front of that owner like a piece of cake. I don't know what you want to call it. Fourth, I have Damian Harris. This is just, I want to see what happens. He has 1 week before Sony Michel comes back. This week's the last week before Sony comes back. If he can prove viable, I think he's going to get the majority of the carries going forward. Obviously, Rex Burkhead is going to be a gadget-type player and is always going to have the touches, and then James White's always there. But for Russian baseline, I expect Damian Harris to get 10 carries a game, and with bye weeks coming up, a lot of RBs being hurt, I think Damian Harris can be a flex play in 12-team leagues. Chase Edmonds comes in at my number 5, same reasons you gave. Pirine, number 6, because Bell's gone, and who knows? Frank Gore's been averaging like 3.2 yards a carry or something. So that's god awful. Can't catch the ball. So Pirine might have a chance here, and they just got rid of Kalen Ballage before the weekend. So I mean, the running back room has opened up, and I put Philip Lindsay as a flyer, just monitor Melvin Gordon's situation. Also, add Philip Lindsay, regardless what happens to Melvin Gordon, because we can see him being see that being a two-headed attack. It was hard to say what happened with Week 1 when he got hurt, so we don't know what approach they were meaning to take into that game. So that'll do for running backs. Moving to tight ends, I have Austin Hooper as number 1. Looking like he's finally starting to find his place on that team. He's in on every set. I mean, that's a team who runs the ball hard and then has a little trick play throw, and he had 10 targets this week, so he was on the other end of that. Jimmy Graham gives you a floor of 4 points with an upside of a touchdown. And I also added TJ Hawkinson coming off the bye. Maybe the team has figured out a way to get the ball going. Derek, what do you have for tight ends?
Yeah, I didn't realize TJ Hawkinson was that low owned. I probably would have had him as my first because I had him on a team, and he's been proving out pretty good most weeks. He's actually, I think he's like 8th on the year or something like that, or 13th. He's somewhere around that mix. He's a low end tight end 1, and if he's just doing decent points, just put him in your lineup. He's going to get a touchdown here and there. I have Robert Tonyan as my next one, just because he did seem to get the trust from Aaron Rodgers. I'm not sure if do you know what his own percentage is there, Mark?
I am currently looking it up because 63. He's my number 1. He's
I was thinking he was under 70. So most places you're not going to get him, but because it was a bye week, not everyone grabbed him, or might have even had to drop him because of everything going on this week with COVID. So if he's out there, he's definitely worth a pickup. My next one is Austin Hooper. Like Marcel said, same reasons, and maybe Njoku can be the one to be more of the pass protector instead of taking the passes. And then next, Jimmy Graham. I mean, Foles loves his tight ends, so why not love Jimmy Graham like he seems to? And then other than that, there's just whatever tight end you seem to like, whatever one you think is going to do good, take him, because tight end is a mess anyways. You're just hoping for that touchdown. So if you have a feeling that one's going to score a touchdown over another, go get him. You probably will, because it's just a mess anyways. So we thought we were going to have a good tight end year this year, but it seemed to turn around pretty quickly after like 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, I guess they proved us wrong there. Looking into defense streams, I get the Vikings versus the Falcons. Now this is with a little caveat. That depends on whether Julio Jones is back or not. So that is kind of hard to pick him up right away, but maybe it's someone you wait on and see how Julio is doing and then pick him up if they're still available on your free agent. After I got Washington against Giants, and I also got the Giants against Washington because both quarterbacks haven't proved to be very reliable in protecting of the ball. I mean, we do got a change of quarterback, of course, in Washington from 2 weeks ago. But I'm not sure if Kyle Allen's going to prove out any better than Dwayne Haskins when it comes to protecting the ball and not taking sacks. After that, I got Tennessee against Houston. I mean, I don't know what happened in the Bills game, but they seem to do pretty good, considering they kept them to 16 points. And Bills had a lot more practice than Tennessee, considering Tennessee was all those COVID cases that they've had. And then my last one is Miami against the Jets, because it's the Jets. And Miami's defense is not looking too bad. I think they had an injury to one of their players, but I still would do it because it's still the Jets, one way or another. What about you, Mars?
Yeah, I have Washington as well, just because, I mean, Daniel Jones has been a turnover machine, whether it's in the air or on the ground. And then I have Miami, like you, against the Jets. Sam Darnold coming back or not, I still have Miami in there as a good play, especially Le'Veon Bell's gone. I know they haven't had Le'Veon Bell for the season, but now it's Frank Gore. 3.2 yards a carry. I mean, 3 downs brings you to 9 yards. You still don't have a first down. And that's what they've been doing all year. Unless Perriman can come in and shock the world, Yeah, I'm playing Miami. New York against Washington. I also like that play because I expect this to be a low-scoring affair. And Kyle Allen, I was bringing up his stats from last year. So in 13 games, he had 16 interceptions. So if you calculate on a points per game basis to the defense from the quarterback, plus 7 fumbles lost, so half a fumble per game, you're guaranteed 2.5 points just in turnovers from Kyle Allen. That's on top of your sacks. That's on top of all the other ways to score points from a defense. We'll move on to. I have it in my doc as drops / trade away. So obviously the drop people who to strictly drop are doing much worse, and people who to trade away still have some kind of either name value or have one really good game this year that people are maybe still hanging on, and you're able to trade them away to upgrade. So I have AJ Green. To me, like I said, try to trade him first. If you can't trade him, cut loose on the waivers. Every single waiver player we talked about, I'd rather have, and I had 10 there, so chances are there's a replacement for you. I have trade away Sammy Watkins, but I'm also dropping him. I mean, like I said, I truly believe Mecole Hardman's going to take the number 2 role. Sammy Watkins has had a hurt hamstring before, so everything just keeps leaning up, and he's only had one playable game this year, to be honest. And I also have Dalton Schultz because Andy Dalton is not going to move the ball the way Dak Prescott was able to move the ball. Yes, he has 3 very good wide receivers, 1 really good running back behind him. So once you feed those 4 mouths on a guy that's not going to be able to move the ball like Dak, to me, he becomes droppable, useless, maybe 4 targets a game. Like, if he has the same involvement, good for him, and go back and pick him up. But to me, he's a drop right now. Derek, do you have anyone for your lists? And you're still muted, so that's great.
Sorry about that. I forgot to unmute myself. So for my list, I had the same people as you. I'm not sure. Did you mention T.Y. Hilton?
Nope, but I meant to. I forgot to put his name. So
he's one that I would consider dropping, or like Marcel had mentioned me the other day, try to trade him on name value, maybe package him, but I can't see he's worth to anything. I think everyone sees through it, right? I think everyone sees that he's not worth having. Carson Wentz would be another one I would drop in a 1 quarterback league. I don't see why people are holding on to him. Jimmy G, I mean, if you for some reason picked him up, I don't see a reason to keep him on your. Like, there's so many better streaming quarterbacks. Cam Newton, I mean, I guess you got to keep on your team because he's finally back, hopefully.
What do you mean, I guess?
Well, we don't know if he's back. That's the problem.
He's back.
I mean, did he practice?
He's practicing tomorrow.
Okay, well, once he practices, then I guess you can keep him.
You don't
Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was the one I was going to mention more. It all depends what you see in if Julio's back or not. And I feel like you can find someone more reliable. I think Gardner Minshew, I'd pick him up for him and drop Matt Ryan in a heartbeat. I actually did that like 3 weeks ago in the league, as soon as Julio got injured. So, yeah, I don't know why I said Cam Newton. I mean, I guess I was just looking at him not knowing what COVID might have done to that team, but they only had a couple people that had it anyway, so it's not. I disagree with my earlier comment. Other than that, I don't think there's anyone to drop that I can off the top of my head. I mean, it really depends on your team. I don't know what you guys' teams look like. These were just the high percentage owned people I had seen. I call it one man's trash is another man's treasure. So the people to see on Thursday morning instead of Wednesday morning, people that got dropped, I would still look for DeAndre Swift. If he's out there and he's dropped, he just had a bye week, so that's a reason that if he's not already dropped, he might still get dropped. It's hard to say. People might be just getting tired of having no points on the bench, but he could break out. Sometimes teams do realize over the bye week that their team, who's their best running back. So hopefully maybe that's the case. Never know with that team. What about you, Marcy? You see anyone that you would hope that gets dropped and you might pick them up?
I did have one in mind, but it dropped. Let me check the doc here. It dropped, no pun intended, but pun intended. Yeah, I don't know what happened to my thought. I had a really good player in my... Oh, got him. Michael Gallup. People might say Dak's gone, CeeDee Lamb and Amari and Zeke are the only ones that Dalton can feed. But if you paid attention and watched the end of that game, Michael Gallup had 2 amazing catches. Andy Dalton was targeting Michael Gallup. So if I'm you, I'm going to be like, oh, I'll give you T.Y. Hilton and A.J. Green for Michael Gallup. Because I know I'm dropping A.J. Green, T.Y. Hilton. We're yet to see what Michael Gallup can do with Andy Dalton. Yes, I might sound excited for Michael Gallup right now, but this is all, I don't know, like it's all lack of words right now. But Michael Gallup could become something, but we're going to know quickly. Who does Dallas play this week, Derek? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I will look it up.
I got it right here. Arizona. So, yes, he's playable option against Arizona. Last week, 4 for 4 for 73 yards, 18.3 yards per catch. Played 97% of snaps, so that was his high snap percentage. One thing I am worried about, where Andy Dalton is not as mobile as Dak Prescott, they might try to add an extra player to that O-line, taking a receiver off the field more of the time. So, like I said, a lot of it's wait and see. Last year, Andy Dalton had 4 rushing touchdowns on the season, which is more than you'd think when you mention Andy Dalton's name. So, and Dak already had 3 on the season. So, I guess it's a wait and see thing. I obviously don't expect Andy Dalton to have the touchdown rate on the ground like Dak Prescott, which means more touchdowns to come through the air or through Zeke. I also think Zeke becomes better, 10% better to his numbers of what he's been this year, which is a lot of fun if you're a Zeke owner, which I am in only one league. He was my RB2 on the year. Still probably RB2 on the year because he's probably going to fall behind Kamara in the end of the year rankings. Yeah, so that's the end for one man's trash and another man's treasure. Again, depends on your league, depends on your league mates, who's dropped. And like we always say, ask us questions. Find us on Twitter. Talk to us, whether it's a direct message or a straight up tweet to us. We're happy to answer questions. Ask questions on the YouTube page. Anywhere, ask questions. We'll talk. We'll discuss. You can send us screenshots of your lineups, screenshots of your waivers, whatever you want. Let us know, and we're here to help. So the next segment is trade targets. Who are we going to go out and get before they blow up or before they start doing better? My number one right now trade target is Michael Thomas. Why? Because I looked in one league, and in one of my leagues, the Michael Thomas owner is 0-5. Another one of my leagues, the Michael Thomas owner is 1-4. Another one of my leagues, which I have Michael Thomas, I'm 3-2, and I really got lucky because I got Mike Davis, who has been filling in that hole. I had 3 pretty good wide receivers. So, but other than that, the Michael Thomas owners around the world are struggling right now. They were dependent on him, and especially if they got a bad RB, like maybe their RB2 was Mark Ingram. So that's a team that's struggling. Tell them, well, Michael Thomas is on bye this week. If you go 1-5, if you go 0-6, your year's done. You might as well give up. So try to manufacture a win now. Convince them they need to win now mentality. They got to get rid of Michael Thomas. So offer a decent wide receiver or 2 decent wide receivers if you have 4 of them for Michael Thomas. Try to find a way to make a trade for Michael Thomas. And again, like we said, come to us for questions if we think that you're not giving away too much for Michael Thomas. Another player, Christian McCaffrey, kind of fits that Michael Thomas role. And there's, again, rumors that where Mike Davis is doing so well that Christian McCaffrey might not return this week again, which means that Christian McCaffrey owner, and especially when this was a guy that was picked first overall, that owner might be struggling because they had him in week 1, which he was amazing, but since then, like they might be struggling for real. DJ Chark, he's injured now, and he hasn't been great this year. So if you're a 5-1 team, a 4-2 team, 5-0 team, 4-1 team, not 4-2. DJ Chark is a guy you could target if you'd like. I mean, when he's healthy, he's going to be there for you, and he's going to be great. This team is showing promise on offense, so I'm willing to go get DJ Chark, but again, I'm not willing to pay too much. I'm willing to tell that owner, look, he hasn't been doing too much for you. You're struggling. So as we say, target the people who are weak. Try to give them reason to benefit off of your trade where you can benefit off of their trade. And yeah, I seen the note, Doc, before I hand it over to Derek. Kenyon Drake. Let's talk about people that we would rather have instead of Kenyon Drake, or people we're willing to trade away to acquire Kenyon Drake. So Derek, I'm gonna ask you a couple running backs on what side you'd prefer. So it's Drake or question mark. So for me, I know the answer on this. Kenyon Drake, David Montgomery.
I would have to choose David Montgomery because he doesn't have someone right behind him that could overtake him at any moment's notice. He just has a more solid role.
Great. Okay. Kenyon Drake or Austin Eckler.
That is difficult. I'd probably how many weeks is he out? 4 to 6?
Probably till week 10, so another 4.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with Kenyon Drake. It depends on what your team makeup is. If you're a losing team, you have to stay with Kenyon Drake. But if you're 4-1, 5-0, then maybe you can consider that trade because that could actually get you an asset that helps out your team. But other than that, yeah, it depends.
Kenyon Drake or Myles Gaskin.
That is a tough one only because we don't know where Bell's going to land. Who knows? He could blow up Myles Gaskin.
Saying Bell does not land anywhere. Let's just...
Yeah. Man. I'd almost have to stay with Devontae Parker. I mean, Kenyon Drake, sorry.
Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 more for you. Kenyon Drake or Ronald Jones.
It's another player that I never really liked this much this season, Ronald Jones. I mean, I was down on Kenyon Drake as well, so I'd probably stick with Drake just because I know he's getting more touches, I believe. But, I mean, Ronald Jones, yeah, I'd have to stick with Drake. So that's someone that you could offer up and maybe add Jones. But, yeah.
Exactly.
It does leave a gross taste in my mouth knowing that I have to pick between those two.
All right, and Darrell Henderson or Kenyon Drake?
See, that's why one of those I am tempted to trade away Darrell Henderson and get Kenyon Drake because it's just a 3-headed committee there, and there's a chance that Cam Akers might just take over any day, just as much as Chase Edmonds could take over Kenyon Drake's role. At least that's only a 2-headed backfield. So, yeah, I'd have to stay Kenyon Drake still.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you there. I'd rather Kenyon Drake over Darrell Henderson, and that's why I wanted to bring him up. So if I had to give my opinion on those players, I'd rather have, at this moment in time, like you said, the Le'Veon Bell situation, but I'd rather have Myles Gaskin. If everything continues the same on the season, like no moving parts, I'd rather have Myles Gaskin. Again, Ronald Jones or Kenyon Drake. Here I am on, God, I don't know. I was going to say I'm on the Ronald Jones side, but I honestly don't know.
But now it's hard to say it, eh?
Very hard when you're put on spot. And, I also meant to ask Devin Singletary. I think I'd be on the Kenyon Drake side there with Zach Moss returning. And, so also, this is one, right now it might not be relevant, but at the end of the year we might say, Jesus, Marcel, that was a good point. If you see a team right now with Cam Akers or DeAndre Swift, would you trade away Kenyon Drake for either of those 2 players? And if not, what would you have to add to those players? So like a Michael Gallup or some kind of player like that. What would you add to those players to complete the trade to get one of those rookies?
Yeah, that's the thing. I would need them to add me a wide receiver likely because, I mean, those are the ones that people like to trade most, or even try to give them another wide receiver and then give me a better wide receiver, something to package him up. Could say along the lines of CeeDee Lamb. Probably wouldn't get him because CeeDee Lamb's actually been doing really good this year. So I'd have to say someone like Preston Williams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you...
T. Higgins, anyone along that line, probably.
Okay, so T. Higgins and Cam Akers for Kenyon Drake, you would take the 2 over
I probably would, depending if I have someone that could drop, that I'm comfortable with dropping. That's the only thing is, a lot of teams, you are dropping someone to similar standard, right? And that's the problem is with benches this year and all these injuries is you may not have someone that you're willing to drop to make that trade, right?
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
you're not going to drop a Brandon Cooks to receive a T Higgins. You know what I mean? Like you're not really gaining much there.
Yeah. Alrighty, that's the end of that
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Now let's play that game with you. What would
All
you
right.
trade for Lamar? Because I think he's someone worth trading for.
I trade for Lamar. Are we
Yeah.
talking other pieces or quarterback plus a piece?
Whatever you'd like. Do you have a quarterback in mind that you think is doing good right now and you could trade away and package maybe, Preston Williams or some wide receiver that's, had a good week?
All right, all right. I'm bringing up my quarterbacks just so I have a baseline here.
Yeah.
All right, quarterbacks I would trade away for Lamar.
And you think it's worth doing?
Deshaun Watson and a piece for Lamar I would do, but that piece would have to be I call it my six man, my bench player that if anyone's on bye week, I slide them into my lineup. I call those my six man. Just it's a basketball reference, bench your first off the
Okay.
bench type thing. So I'd trade Deshaun and my six man for Lamar. I would offer 1-for-1 Cam Newton for Lamar. You have a lot of Pats fans in this world. I would rather have Lamar than Cam Newton. Joe Burrow and a piece I would trade in a heartbeat for Lamar. Aaron Rodgers, I would offer 1-for-1. I'd prefer Lamar.
What about Tom Brady?
I probably wouldn't even roster Tom Brady.
Kyler Murray.
Tom Brady's been good. I can't show him disrespect. He's been really good. But I'd rather have Ryan Tannehill over Tom Brady. I know this is away from the discussion. Kyler Murray, I'd rather have Kyler than Lamar. The simple fact that Kyler Murray has been great, if not better than Lamar on the ground this year, and naturally has a better arm than him, and I think he has better weapons on that team in the pass catching. Baltimore has two solid options, and then the rest are flyers in your Miles Boykins, your Duvernay, and I know Willie Snead if he's still there.
I think he might be.
Where Christian Kirk, everyone gave up on Christian Kirk. To me, what I saw the last 2 weeks, Christian Kirk is still a good wide receiver. Andy Isabella, still a good wide receiver, very fast, brings something different to that team. DeAndre Hopkins, to me right now, might be the best wide receiver in football. Like, I'm talking game, I'm not talking fantasy. DeAndre Hopkins might be the best wide receiver in football right now.
Yeah.
And then he also has Larry Fitzgerald, who's super reliable. And then Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds are both pass catching options that are great. So, yeah, Kyler over Lamar right now. Rest of season rankings right now, I still have Russ at number 1.
Yeah.
Dak's gone, unfortunately, because he was my number 2. He was my quarterback 3 on the season coming in. So I expected high things. Dak was producing. Sucks he's gone. Lost him in 4 of my 7 leagues. It's just, yeah, tough times on the kid, but we're going to bounce back. So I'd rather have Patrick Mahomes over Lamar, Josh Allen over Lamar, and that's my list.
So you won't have Aaron Rodgers. You would trade away Aaron Rodgers from Lamar.
Just for the Russian baseline, yes.
Yeah.
And I see Green Bay is quietly a top 4 team to me in the league today. Their defense has been actually stout. Their offense is unstoppable. So to me, Aaron Rodgers might have disappearing acts just because they can run the ball over and over and over in the second half, mixing between their 3 running backs that are good. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that just goes to show that people are probably pretty low on Lamar because he hasn't been that great this year compared to years past. And that team did usually probably use a second round, third round pick of Lamar. So they likely are hurting as well. So there's a chance you can go buy him on the cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could even give just a wide receiver like 3, like your third wide receiver for him. And then, you can replace your third wide receiver usually pretty easy unless it's quite a good one. So yeah, that's just to remind people that look for the teams that are 4-1 or 1-4, 0-5, and look if they have players that are injured or on bye week this week, and they just need to do anything to win, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe you can get like a Christian McCaffrey on the cheap. I mean, you're still going to have to pay, but maybe you could trade a Joe Mixon and a piece for Christian McCaffrey or something like that. So, or even any of these other people that are on buys. I mean, look, maybe you can get one of the Seahawks players. Likely not, because they've been tearing it up. You're usually going to have to look for someone that hasn't been. Other than that, you have to keep in mind, look ahead of your schedule a little bit and maybe try to make trades there that you don't have to play that player against that player because it's going to be on your bye week. So if you trade away a player that you're playing that guy in week 7, then there you go. You just kind of got yourself a little more chance of winning that week. So always keep that in mind too whenever you're going to look for trades. And people that trade away, I would trade away Darrell Henderson. Try to get whatever you can from him because he's going to be decent, but I just can't see him being amazing every week. And I think this is probably the best he's done in the last 3 weeks. So that's why I would try to trade him away. He's my only real trade away person I can think of off the top of my head. What about you, Marcy? Anyone that you'd trade away right now with their recent production?
No, not outside of what you said there with Darrell Henderson. I mean, this was a very... If I somehow had Travis Fulgham on my bench, yeah, sure, I'll trade him away.
Yeah.
If I have those people in my league that are all about recency bias, yeah, I'll trade Claypool away in a heartbeat. I mean, if I can get Cooper Kupp for Chase, I'm doing it. I mean, I'm trying to look at a list here quickly. CeeDee Lamb I'd take over Claypool. Will Fuller I would take over Claypool. Jamison Crowder I would take over Claypool. So there are people there. What about
Mike Davis? He's someone that maybe you can trade away this week. It's
hard,
but if you can find someone that needs a win right now and they don't have any running backs, maybe you can do that.
The only place I can see trading Mike Davis away is the Christian McCaffrey owner and say, hey, okay, I get you want to keep Christian McCaffrey. I get it. He was your first pick. He's the best fantasy player still on this earth. So I get why you want to keep Christian McCaffrey, so I'm not going to target McCaffrey from you. But I'll give you Mike Davis for your sixth man. So I don't know. I don't think you can get a lot from him, especially as the injury goes on and as Christian McCaffrey is ready to return. But I think you can trade him to the McCaffrey owner, saying, hey, you need wins now, blah, 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 blah. So next, I have a list of players that I find around the fantasy world are underspoken about. I don't want to say forgotten, but people aren't really talking about them. Either they're just doing what they've expected to do and nothing more, nothing less, or whatever it may be. My biggest one is Julian Edelman. Do you start him in 2 wide receiver lineups, half-point PPR, 12-point leagues on a regular basis? Or is he kind of your flex? Like, where do you put Julian Edelman? I don't want you to go look at his rankings on the year, points per game basis. I just want you to give me how you feel on Julian Edelman right now.
I honestly feel like I have in the past and that I would maybe flex him at best. Other than that, I don't think he's had that great of a season. Not someone I would technically want to throw in my lineup every week. He's someone that I'd rather have on my bench just in case, like for bye weeks. I had him like that since the start of the year, though. Before even the year started, I was really low on him.
Okay, if I told you in half-point PPR he's averaging 10 points per game.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. What does that make him on the season, though?
He's ahead of Keelan Cole, Brandon Ayuk, Laviska Shenault. I don't have the number here. Ahead of Michael Gallup.
But that gives me a range of like those people that, like Keelan Cole was the same way. As I didn't really want to start him unless he was my flex as a bye week or injury replacement. It's the same mold as people that you want to have on your team just to be able to start them, but not someone you want to start.
Yeah, and then like he's ahead of Hollywood Brown, He's ahead of Mike Williams. He's ahead of John Brown. He's ahead of Julio, which he's ahead of Jerry Jeudy. So Brandon Cooks he's ahead of. So he always gives you that safe kind of play. And if you have a boom bust team, I don't mind having him in there. I mean, the game against the Raiders where he had 2 catches for 23 yards and nothing else, that game hurt his on-year rankings. So, yeah, definitely just remember him. Keep in the back of your mind. Another player I have that has been mentioned much around the world is Hollywood Brown, as we just talked about. So how do you feel on Hollywood Brown and where he's at this point in the season? What do you think?
I mean, he's someone that's kind of a boom-bust player, if I remember right how the season has went so far. I mean, he wasn't in all the games this year because he's been injured.
No, he's played every game. He's
played every game? I thought he missed 1 or 2. Wow. That kind of shows he must be very boom-bust my first thought is that he's missed some games. I got to look back at what he's done the last few weeks.
I have the numbers here. So week 1, 12.6, then 6.7, then 2.3. So there's your bust. Then 10.6 and 16.8. So you take out the 2.3, which is a really bad bust. 6.7, awful to have in a week. Yeah, it sucks. It's not what you wanted. It's obviously 3 to 5 points below expectations. But otherwise, I feel like he's kind of undervalued just because you took him for the boom potential and he hasn't shown the boom yet. So maybe you can trade and grab Hollywood somewhere.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I agree.
Yeah, so that's why I want to bring up these players because people might not realize how they've been doing because from what I've listened to from other podcasters is these guys aren't talked about. My next guy, Robert Woods.
Robert Woods. I mean, from past production, you just automatically think low-end wide receiver 2 closer to a wide receiver. Low-end wide receiver 1 closer to a wide receiver 2. And that's kind of how I still feel. I don't feel like he's had any amazing... I feel like he's just been pretty average this year. Maybe you could shed more light on it, but I would have him as my, I want to start him as my wide receiver 2, maybe flex at the worst. I would want to try to put him in every week if I could. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 this year.
Okay, and as it shows here, you kind of have him in the right boat for... I'm only going off of points per game right now. I'm not going on season points because I hate how these things don't bring in the bye weeks. So if I said he was 1 spot behind Amari Cooper, 1 spot ahead of Chris Godwin on points per game basis.
Well, that surprised me that he's that close to Cooper. Doesn't surprise me he's ahead of Godwin because, I mean, Godwin has missed a lot of weeks in our 5-week sample.
Okay, right? Okay. I'll say the 5 players below Robert Woods. Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen, Will Fuller, Terry McLaurin, and his teammate Cooper Kupp. And on top of him, Amari Cooper, Lamb, Allen Robinson, Odell, Kenny Golladay for points per game basis. So he's with some good names there.
He is with some good names, but he's someone that is quite boom bust, I think, this season. There's so many different wide receivers and passing options there that I feel like his floor is good though. That's the thing. He's boom bust with a decent floor in most games. That's the thing. Especially where they like to just get him to do anything, right? They'll make him run a little bit. They'll make him so he's someone I'm not sure if I want him as my wide receiver 1, but definitely want him if he's my wide receiver 2, I'm happy. But if he's my wide receiver 1, you almost don't love it. So that's just how I feel about him. He's someone that, if you had Robbie Anderson, might be worth trading for because you never know if Robbie Anderson gets taken over by DJ Moore or not. Although I believe DJ Moore is a little banged up, or was I wrong about that?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe he just he looked like he got a good hit this week.
Maybe. So yeah, back on Robert Woods. Yep. So to me, Robert Woods, he's not a boom bust player. He's a boom bust player.
Yeah.
So, and if I read his games, 15, 10, 19, 7, 15. So from 7 to 19 is his range right now in the year, and I believe that's what it will be going forward.
Yeah.
Because the less receptions he has on a week is 2, which Obviously, that
That's
sucked. He
scary.
had five targets. It was against Philly. Slay was guarding him that game. And then against the Giants, he had 6 receptions for 36 yards. So the yardage wasn't there. Otherwise, he's been very healthy, very good. And yeah, like I said, I had to get his name out there as somebody that's under talked about. So those are my 3 wide receivers. I might be able to surprise you with a running back here, but David Johnson.
I would definitely want him as my RB, my flex for sure. It's not RB2. I'm pretty sure he's had a decent season, has he not? That's how I feel, just not even looking at rankings and haven't looked for a while.
Well, we're going to talk about points per game again.
Yep.
The first week against Kansas City, great week, 18. But since then, 6, 11, 10, 11.
Okay, so he hasn't had a great year, that's for sure. Hopefully without Bill O'Brien, maybe he'll feel better because of how bad, toxic Bill O'Brien was. Maybe he's going to want to run a little harder. But, I wouldn't want him much more than my RB2. I guess I'd want him more in my flex if I could, at the most.
Yep.
Knowing how he's done.
Yeah, but he also played against Kansas City, which he did really well. But Kansas City is starting to now show that they're weaker against the run, even though to start the season, people didn't really feel that way. Then he's had Baltimore, Pittsburgh. So he has had tough matchups. But then his next matchup, Tennessee. His next matchup, Green Bay. And then a bye. And then guess what? Opens up Jacksonville, Cleveland's half and half, New England's tough, then Detroit, Indiana's tough, Chicago, Indiana, Cincinnati. So when I said opened up, half the games are open, half the games are not. But playoff weekend, week 16, he has Cincinnati. He should be able to run all over them. But to win the playoffs and to get to the finals, you got to go through Chicago and the Colts with him. So at the start of the season, I was like, yeah, I actually think David Johnson can be great. But these weeks of 10 to 11 points, I think that might be the David Johnson of the year. And his ceiling will only be his touchdowns in that game. But his carry counts have been healthy. He actually had his most carries this week, which is a good sign. If I'm not wrong, Duke Johnson was healthy this week and active. So the coaches definitely like David Johnson, and I think his receiving game will come up. So, yeah, I just know he's under talked about and wanted to get those numbers out there. Is there anybody else on this list that I want to mention as under talked about? No, we're going to end there for that.
Would you rather Darrell Henderson or D. Johnson there, David?
David Johnson.
Do you think you can make that trade? I think that's maybe doable. If the player just looks at the 5-year stat, like the 5-game sample, he's RB14 on the year in standard leagues, scoring 18, 18, 3, and 18 in the last 4 weeks. I mean, 0.6 in the first, but most people will kind of forget that, right?
Yeah.
So if you only look at the last 3-4 weeks, he looks amazing. So that would be someone that maybe you can get, right?
Exactly.
I really think Darrell Henderson is someone really to trade away. I think he's had his best 4-game sample he will likely have, unless Cam Akers gets hurt again or Malcolm Brown even gets hurt. It might only take an injury to one of them, but it's going to be a committee one way or another. So, yeah.
Nice.
Great. Any other points you got there, Mers?
No, that's it. I'm good.
Well, I guess that wraps up today's podcast. Please don't forget to click that like button and subscribe on YouTube and hit that bell for notifications. Also follow us on Twitter at BoudreauxBrosFF and our personal accounts at Marcel_BFF, the Raider lover, and at Derek_BFF. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us for any questions about rankings, start sit, trades, waiver wire pickups, people to drop, anything like that. Anyways, thanks and see you next time.
See you.